The grand dining hall at Mar-a-Lago shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their light refracting through polished silverware and fine china. Laughter echoed faintly, masking the tension simmering beneath the surface. Ivanka sat poised, her hands trembling slightly as she folded a handwritten letter into thirds. Across the table, Donald leaned back in his chair, oblivious to the storm about to break. With a deep breath, Ivanka slid the note toward him. Her heart pounded, not from fear of rejection, but from the weight of what this moment would mean for their family legacy. Donald's fingers brushed against the crisp paper, curiosity flickering across his face. As he unfolded it, his expression hardened. His eyes darted over the words. Divorce, Jared, freedom. A muscle twitches in his jaw, disbelief giving way to fury. But is this, he barked, slamming the letter onto the table. Silence fell like a guillotine. Melania reached out hesitantly, while Eric and Don Jr. exchanged uneasy glances. Ivanka met her father's gaze, unflinching despite the chaos brewing around them. "I can't keep pretending," she said softly, her voice cutting through the tension like glass breaking. "This isn't just about me. It's about survival." Within hours, whispers turned into roars. Reporters camped outside Mar-a-Lago, snapping photos of guests leaving with tight-lipped expressions. Headlines blared. Trump empire shaken. Ivanka files for divorce. Speculation ran rampant. Was this the end of an era? Pundits dissected every detail, painting grim portraits of betrayal and broken promises. For once, even Donald couldn't control the narrative. Alone in his study later that night, Donald stared at the glowing screen of his phone. Tweets poured in, some supportive, others scathing. He clenched his fists, torn between rage and guilt. How could Ivanka do this to him, to their name? Yet another part of him whispered, "Did I push her too far?" Memories surfaced, his own failed marriages, the compromises he'd demanded of everyone around him. Was he any better than the critics now tearing him apart? "He deserves happiness," Melania murmured from the doorway, startling him. "But are you ready to let go of control?" By morning, Twitter was ablaze. Hashtags trended worldwide. Free Ivanka, Trump family drama, legacy over love. Supporters rallied behind Ivanka, calling her brave for stepping away from a toxic marriage. Critics, however, accused Donald of hypocrisy, pointing out his vocal defense of traditional values while failing to support his daughter privately. Fans debated fiercely, some defending the Trump dynasty, others declaring its inevitable collapse. Amid the noise, one comment stood out. Even kings fall when they forget how fragile crowns truly are. Ivanka sat alone in her penthouse, staring at the city lights below. Memories flooded back. Photo shoots where she smiled through exhaustion. Charity events where she masked her loneliness with charm. Her marriage to Jared had once been a beacon of hope, but now it felt like another performance. She longed for connection. Yet every attempt was overshadowed by his ambition or her father's expectations. "I'm not enough," she whispered into the empty room, tears brimming. "Not for him, not for Dad, maybe not even for myself." Her phone buzzed. A text from Donald. "We need to talk, soon." She sighed, knowing this wasn't just about family. It was about legacy. Jared paced their shared office, scrolling through emails on his phone. "You know what they'll say if we split," he said sharply, glancing at Ivanka. "It'll look weak, like failure." "It's not about appearances anymore," Ivanka shot back, her voice trembling with frustration. "It's about surviving each other. You're so consumed with power that you don't see how suffocating it is for me." He paused, hurt flickering across his face before hardening again. "And what about your dad? Does he approve of this little rebellion?" "This isn't about him," she snapped, though doubt lingered in her eyes. Was anything truly hers? Donald slammed his fist against the desk as Eric and Don Jr. watched nervously. "That marriage was supposed to be untouchable, a symbol of unity," he growled. "Now everyone thinks I can't keep my own house together." Don Jr. cleared his throat. "Dad, maybe it's not about us. Maybe it's about her happiness." "Happiness doesn't win elections," Donald interrupted. "If Ivanka walks away, people will think we're fractured, weak, and weakness gets exploited." Melania entered quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes strength means letting go." The paparazzi camped outside Ivanka's building were relentless, snapping photos of her leaving yoga class, grocery shopping, even walking barren to school. Late-night hosts joked about the Trump soap opera, while tabloids speculated wildly. One headline read, "Divorce drama. Is the Trump empire crumbling?" Inside, Ivanka scrolled through the chaos on her laptop, feeling both exposed and misunderstood. How could anyone grasp the complexity of her life when all they saw were headlines? At dinner that night, tension crackled like static electricity. Melania tried to mediate, urging Donald to listen rather than lecture. "She needs support, not judgment," she pleaded softly. Eric chimed in, "People already think we're falling apart. If we fight publicly, it'll only get worse." Donald scowled, stabbing at his steak. "Support won't save the brand. Loyalty does." Ivanka clenched her fists under the table, biting back tears. They didn't understand, not really. Later, Ivanka found Barron in his room, headphones dangling around his neck. "Hey, kiddo," she said, sitting beside him. "What's going on?" he asked, sensing her unease. "I stayed because I thought it would make Dad proud," she admitted, her voice breaking. "But now I realize I lost myself trying to live up to him." Barron hugged her tightly, offering silent comfort. For the first time, she let herself cry without restraint. As days passed, secrets spilled like water through cracks in a dam. Jared admitted to friends he'd prioritized politics over family. Melania revealed she'd begged Ivanka to leave years ago. Even Donald confessed to Eric that he feared losing relevance. Each revelation added weight to an already strained situation, pushing them closer to a breaking point neither side could predict nor control. Donald's voice boomed through the office, echoing off the walls like thunder. "You're throwing away everything we've built." "For what, your happiness?" he spat, his face flushed with anger. Ivanka stood firm, her chin lifted defiantly. "This isn't about me being selfish, it's about survival," she shot back, her voice trembling but resolute. "You care more about appearances than you do about us as people. Do you even know who I am anymore?" Donald clenched his fists, pacing like a caged lion. "How dare you accuse me of neglecting you? Everything I've done has been for this family, for our name." "And look where it's gotten us," Ivanka countered, tears welling up but unshed. "Broken promises and hollow legacies." Unbeknownst to them, a hidden camera captured every heated word, every flash of emotion. Within hours, the footage leaked online, sending shockwaves across social media. Fans gasped at Donald's raw fury and Ivanka's quiet defiance. For once, the polished veneer cracked wide open, revealing humanity beneath the glamour, and no one could look away. Back in his study, Donald slumped into his chair, exhaustion etched into his features. He replayed their argument in his mind. The accusations, the pain. Memories surfaced. Ivana's departure, Marla's heartbreak, Melania's silent endurance. Had he pushed everyone away with his relentless demands for perfection? "He stayed because she thought it would make me proud," he muttered aloud, guilt twisting inside him. "What kind of father does that make me?" For the first time, the weight of his choices pressed down on him. Not just as a public figure, but as a man. The world watched as cracks appeared in Donald's carefully curated image. Gone was the brash confidence. Instead, vulnerability shone through. Reporters dissected his expressions. Fans debated his sincerity. Some saw weakness, others saw growth, but all agreed this was a side of him they'd never witnessed before. Fame had always been armor, but now it felt like chains. That night, Donald hesitated before dialing Ivanka's number. His pride warred with his guilt until finally he pressed call. "Ivanka," he began, his voice softer than usual. "I'm sorry. Truly, I let my ego get in the way and I failed you." Ivanka exhaled sharply, surprised by his humility. After a pause, she replied, "Thank you for saying that, Dad. It means more than you know." The next morning, Ivanka arrived at Mar-a-Lago, meeting Donald in the garden. They sat quietly at first, unsure how to bridge years of misunderstanding. But when Donald reached for her hand, something shifted. A fragile yet hopeful beginning to healing wounds long ignored. The leaked footage of Donald's confrontation with Ivanka exploded across every platform, dissected frame by frame. Viewers marveled at his uncharacteristic vulnerability, his voice cracking, his hands trembling. Supporters praised him for finally showing humanity, while critics pounced on his earlier outburst, accusing him of hypocrisy. Social media lit up with hashtags like "Authentic Trump" and "Family First Fail." "He stood her ground," one fan tweeted about Ivanka. "But can we trust this apology?" another countered. The divide deepened, turning the scandal into a cultural flashpoint. Late-night hosts traded mockery for introspection. "Look, no one's perfect, not even the Donald," quipped one comedian. "And let's be real, who hasn't had a family fight they regret?" another joked. "If I cried every time my dad yelled at me, I'd need a yacht-sized tissue box." Yet beneath the humor lay subtle admiration for Ivanka's courage, and even Donald's rare moment of humility. Online forums buzzed with debate. Some rallied behind Ivanka, calling her decision brave and overdue. "She's choosing herself over the brand," one supporter wrote. Others weren't convinced. "Convenient timing," sneered a critic. "This feels more like damage control than self-discovery." Tensions escalated as fans clashed over motives and authenticity, each side digging in deeper. Meanwhile, Ivanka scrolled through the chaos silently, feeling both validated and exposed. Away from the noise, Ivanka retreated to a secluded estate overlooking the ocean. Barron played quietly nearby as she sat on the terrace, sipping tea and watching waves crash against the shore. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream beyond titles and expectations. What does happiness look like without the spotlight? She wondered aloud. Her phone buzzed incessantly, but she ignored it, relishing the quiet freedom she hadn't known she craved. Back at Mar-a-Lago, Donald found solace in Melania's company. Sitting by the pool, he confessed his fears. "I thought I was building something permanent, a legacy, but now I'm not so sure." Melania listened intently, her gaze softening. "You've always chased perfection, but life isn't perfect, not for anyone." She paused, then added, "Even your children deserve grace. Maybe it's time you gave them, and yourself, that gift." Donald nodded slowly, guilt mingling with resolve. Perhaps redemption wasn't out of reach after all. Days later, Ivanka returned to Mar-a-Lago, meeting Donald in the library. They spoke softly, tentatively, bridging gaps that had widened over years. "I want to understand you better," Donald admitted, surprising himself. Ivanka smiled faintly, touched by his effort. Though fragile, their bond began to mend, a testament to resilience amidst relentless scrutiny. In a joint statement, Ivanka and Donald acknowledged the complexities of balancing fame and family. "We're learning to embrace imperfection," Ivanka wrote, while Donald added, "Even kings fall sometimes, but we rise stronger together." Fans cheered the sentiment, hopeful for a new chapter. Critics remained skeptical, but the seeds of change were planted. Over coffee at Mar-a-Lago, Ivanka and Donald sat across from each other, the air thick with unspoken truths. "I never meant to hurt you," Donald began, his voice softer than usual. "But I see now how my expectations pushed you away." Tears welled in Ivanka's eyes as she nodded. "I wanted to make you proud, but somewhere along the way I lost myself trying." They spoke for hours, about regrets, missed opportunities, and hopes for the future. By the end, a fragile yet hopeful bond had formed. "We'll do better this time," Ivanka promised, her tone resolute. In a statement released to the press, Ivanka wrote, "This decision was not made lightly, nor out of anger or resentment. It is rooted in love, for myself, for Jared, and for our shared history. Moving forward means embracing growth, even when it's painful." The announcement stunned fans and critics alike. Late-night hosts praised her poise, while social media erupted with support. One fan tweeted, "She's showing us all what grace looks like under pressure." Though the weight of finality lingered, Ivanka felt lighter, as if shedding layers of expectation allowed her to breathe again. At a private family dinner, the Trump siblings gathered around Ivanka, offering unwavering support. Don Jr. raised a glass, saying, "To resilience, and to sticking together no matter what." Even Jared surprised everyone, standing to address the group. "I wasn't perfect, and neither was she," he admitted humbly. "But we tried, and that matters." His words broke the tension, earning nods of approval. For the first time in months, laughter filled the room, a small victory amidst chaos. As days passed, public opinion tilted sharply in Ivanka's favor. Articles hailed her courage, framing her decision as an act of empowerment rather than failure. Fans flooded social media with stories of their own struggles, inspired by her honesty. "She's humanizing herself," one pundit noted on CNN, "and reminding us that even celebrities face battles behind closed doors." Critics softened their tone, acknowledging her vulnerability as a step toward authenticity, a rare feat in the world of fame. Alone in his study, Donald stared at old photos of his children, reflecting on the man he'd been versus the father he wanted to become. "Success isn't just about deals or power," he murmured to Melania later that evening. "It's about connection, love. I've spent too long chasing perfection instead of cherishing moments." Melania smiled gently. "It's never too late to change, Donald. Start now." With them, he nodded, resolving hardening within him. True legacy wasn't built on headlines. It was forged through relationships nurtured with care. Ivanka's journey sparked conversations far beyond tabloids. Talk shows featured experts discussing mental health and self-worth, while podcasts explored the pressures faced by those in the public eye. Ivanka's story reminds us that success doesn't have to come at the cost of happiness, said one guest on Good Morning America. Her courage gives others permission to prioritize themselves. Critics who once dismissed her as privileged now saw her actions as universal, a testament to the strength required to redefine oneself under scrutiny. With renewed clarity, Ivanka embraced life outside the shadow of fame. She launched a foundation focused on empowering women, channeling her experiences into advocacy. Meanwhile, Donald redefined his priorities, spending more time with family and less on appearances. "We're learning to live differently," Ivanka told a close friend. "Not for applause, but for fulfillment." Their transformation served as a reminder. Redemption wasn't reserved for ordinary lives. Even icons could find peace through vulnerability and self-awarenesses.